Help!
Welcome everybody to episode 3 of Under the Spotlight, where we take a look at retro games and discuss whether or not they're worth your time playing or worth your time collecting. Who am I? My notes are on my phone. I'm recording with my phone. This isn't gonna go well. On today's episode, starfox for the Super Nintendo.
This is gonna be the start of something huge.
During the early years of the Super Nintendo and the Nintendo Entertainment System, Nintendo worked fairly close with a development studio known as Argonaut Software, a developer that was mostly known back then for their work on Starglider and Starglider 2, popular space flight simulator game at the time. To put it simply, Nintendo wanted to create a similar experience on the Super Nintendo, but developer Jez San expressed some concerns with the power of the Super Nintendo and its inability to keep up with the demand that such a game would require. With this project at the forefront of Nintendo's mind, they accepted all terms and conditions for Jez San to make this game as good as it could be, which in turn meant the creation of the Super FX chip. An incredible piece of technology that significantly improved the rendering capability of the Super Nintendo from just mere 2D sprites to full 3D objects, which wasn't common at the time, especially readily available for the average consumer. It was impressive, and honestly, to this day, it still kind of is. But is it worth your time playing? Is it worth your time collecting? No, man, why are you asking me? Let's go find out. StarFox was released in March of 1993 for the Super Nintendo and achieved immediate success. This game sold incredibly well, incredibly fast. By the end of its lifespan, it sold just around 4 million copies, an achievement we did see back in episode 1, Throwback, with Oracle of Ages and Seasons, but this is a standalone game. This is one release. 4 million copies is impressive and has warranted this game a contested title of one of the greatest games of all time.
The greatest! The greatest!
And I'm gonna be honest, it does stand up to the test of time, despite how archaic the graphics do appear.
Yo, that's good. How?
Even though the game is very primal and basic with just simple polygonal objects, there's just something about StarFox that really makes you want to keep going. Even though it is technically a rail shooter by all intents and purposes, it doesn't really feel like it because the box that you're contained within doesn't feel as limiting because there's so much movement available to you right from the get-go. It does allow you to choose from 4 different options based on your comfort, which honestly isn't anything too crazy, but it was just nice to have that available to me, especially because I wasn't a fan of the default option. I went with one of the other options, and you were actually able to test it out before you hopped into main gameplay. A1. That's...
Oh, I like that. I like that.
And when you do get into gameplay, I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't pay much attention to the story because the gameplay's just that good. I have no idea how you guys did anything back in the early 90s with this game readily available. It is insanely fun, even when you ignore the story. And the best part about it is there's a lot of replayability to it. The more you get comfortable with the way the game controls, finding your perfect preferred control scheme, you get significantly better and bosses become nothing burger challenges, and makes you want to keep progressing and progressing because it is an arcade game in the sense that you do have to go from start to finish in one run.
Just squint and run. No, I don't run.
But you also have a little bit of variety in how you want to experience the game as well, which was really cool once I figured that out. You're immediately granted 3 different levels. Simply put, you've just got to go from home planet all the way to bad guy planet. How you do so is entirely up to you, which does give that little bit, that extra sense of control, like you're actually actively making the decision on what strategic path you were taking, which was kind of cool. But each path also had its own unique maps, levels, and challenges. They pulled out all the stops and it paid off tenfold.
It's a good investment, you know, long term.
I have absolutely no idea what the story is. And yet I'm still playing the game to this day because the game is incredibly fun. Your allies, while you're flying through space, will suddenly attract an enemy's attention and you've got to help them, and there's text blurbs that'll pop up on screen that kind of act as communication, and voice acting in the game that just adds a little bit of immersion. And where this game is just so easy to pick up and put down and play through in, honestly, I would say an hour or two, I can't do anything but recommend playing this game. It is a fantastic experience, although I would admit if the Super Nintendo was a little bit faster at processing certain events, gameplay would feel a bit more consistent and a little bit smoother, but it does the job, and it honestly is quite fun. I will say playing the game natively on a Super Nintendo is definitely worth your time if you are able to get your hands on a Super Nintendo. Otherwise, do what needs to be done.
Are you trying to tell me something?
Even though it is a fantastic game and I do recommend playing it, do I recommend collecting it? Actually, yeah. It's the first game that used the Super FX chip, so in that instance, it is quite cool to own because it is such a significant leap in technology, especially for the Super Nintendo, that you can't help but just appreciate the technological achievement that is the Super FX chip. And I'm gonna be honest with you, the cartridge is actually kind of cool. I don't have it with me while I'm recording this, but I'm fairly certain it's just Fox just standing on the label, but it just has that, I don't know, man. It just looks kind of nice, and I like it. I just like it. It's not that expensive of a game either. I did pick my copy up for about $25 Canadian, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, which admittedly, even at the time, was a little bit of an overpayment, but I liked the shop that I bought it at and I wanted to support them, so especially if there's a local shop that you do like to support, I'd recommend grabbing this game, preferably if you could find it for about $25-ish Canadian. Anything more than that, I don't think this game is worth picking up, solely because there's just so many of them available. It sold 4 million copies. You're not going to be hard-pressed to find one if you can't find one for a decent price. Take your time, find one for a solid price, and if you can get this between 15 and 25 Canadian dollars, yeah, this is definitely worth picking up. It's a fun game, the cartridge looks really nice, and it's just a cool piece of Nintendo history. Anyway, that's it. Why the f*** are you still here?